right, I apologize for that, guys.
I don't usually post on YouTube, mainly on my TikTok, but I feel like this video deserves to be posted on here. Don't worry, I'll post a small clip of this on TikTok when I upload it. Anyways, many of you know I do RFAU content, and my time in the fandom has been amazing. Now that we have a new owner in lore, many people have been confused, and I'm here to save the day and explain all of it here in one video. Don't know how long this will be, but sit down, relax, grab a snack, and enjoy. We're going to be talking mostly lore surrounding Walden, Julie, Oilia, Wallace, and more. But if we really want to understand the whole thing, we have to turn all the way back. When Wallace was growing up, as you can see in the Darling family tree, our first characters are William Darling, Mary Lou Darling, and their only child, Wallace Darling. Now, if you're curious, no, Mordecai Darling is no longer canon in the storyline. Originally, when Dodo was owner, Wallace had an older brother named Mordecai, but it was confirmed now that he doesn't take part in the story Color of Madness anymore. You can still headcanon he is still there. Nothing wrong with it. Anyways, back to our main topic. As bad as Walden's childhood was, Wallace took it more rough than him. When he was young, William expected him to act like an adult since the day of his birth. He was a very abusive and bad father with a high ego and believed he deserved everything. Basically saw himself as a successful man and a winner. The abuse from William affected Wallace heavily, probably shaped him into the person he is today. William smoked a lot. According to Wallace, it was to relieve stress. He would put out the cigars on Wallace, a reason why to this day he doesn't wear short sleeves. William has accidentally broken some of Wallace's bones and hit him for having bad grades. So yeah, that sums up how much a shitty father he was. And if you're wondering, where's Mary in all this? Why didn't she do anything? Well, she was an iffy mother to Wallace because she didn't want to get in William's way. Speaking of Mary and William, they were betrothed to each other. He actually cheated on her numerous of times and found excuses to get away with it. Of course, Mary didn't believe him, but she loved him too much to divorce or let him go. That's all for Wallace's childhood. Let's move on to his adult life. Now an adult, Wallace studied business to take over an oil company he currently owns and is the CEO. Later on, like his father, he was betrothed to an animal muppet named Francine Darling in order to combine wealth and companies owned by their families. Wallace was never interested in Francine, nor did he want to get married, but he did try to make their marriage to somewhat work, though she always brushed him off. Francine was mostly quiet and calm, but in reality, she was a very strong and independent woman. Whenever she and Wallace fought, she was never afraid to stand up for herself. Then in the future, a little baby was brought into the world, named Walden Darling. Now, Walden has a bunch of lore on him since he's the main character, so get ready for a lot of stories. Growing up, Walden's childhood wasn't merely as bad as Wallace's, but it had its moments. Walden was born a genius and a smart little kid, and was always successful in his studies. But that wasn't enough to please Wallace. He was strict, demanding, and expected a lot from him. Safe to say they didn't bond whatsoever. Despite being a bad father, he did taught him some useful things and would defend him from time to time. Wallace did not take kindly when someone insulted his son or wife, the only nice thing he did for them. As for Francine, she was a very loving and caring mother to Walden, her pride and joy, taking care of him the best way she could and comforting him about anything, whether it was Wallace, school, etc. She would also encourage him to do what he wants, despite what his father says. And that's what he did. School life was overwhelming for Walden too. He was often teased and bullied for being different. What I mean by that is that he's part caracal, a cat breed. Francine is fully caracal, so those genes passed down to him. He had whiskers, paws, and cat-like reactions, which is why he was bullied so much and he'd get upset over it. Even though he felt lonely most of the time, he was a good student, took a passion in reading and especially science. This fact will be important for later. I forgot to mention he did manage to find some friends, the two he's known for most of his life, Julianne Joyful and Selena, or Sally Starlet. This was one of the hardest times in Walden's life. He was now grown up and 15 years old in high school, but one of the worst tragedies happened. Unfortunately, Francine got very sick and ill. The doctors explained she didn't have much time left. Walden was heartbroken. He couldn't believe the one person he cared for was going to be gone. But regardless of the situation, Francine, like the sweet mother she is, reassured him that everything is going to be okay, that he'll do great things in this world and to keep his head up high. The last words she whispered to him were, "Be kind, my darling." This part sort of connects to Francine's death. This is Harold. Actually, that's his fake name. His name is Home. Home is, well, actually, we don't know what he is. Call him a monster, demon, a powerful being. He has no label to himself. He likes to toy with people's life and has been targeting the Darling family bloodline for generations. His main interest is Walden at the moment. Every bad thing happening to him is because of Home. We don't know what exactly Home wants from him, but at the end of the Color of Madness story, I'm sure we will. About Francine, Wallace actually met Home. I'm not sure how, but he mentioned he wanted his son, Walden, to be successful in the future. I think he said this because he was afraid that he wasn't going to be a big shot in the future since Walden wasn't all social. Home listened and agreed, but on one condition, he had to make a sacrifice. Francine. Without hesitation, he agreed. Things weren't the same back at home after Francine's death. Walden became more distant, quiet, and especially cold. But Wallace didn't care that his son was grieving. He just cared about him studying business and taking over the family company. That's what all family members have done, but not what Walden wanted. Then he met a man named Barnaby B. Beagle. He was Wallace's personal hire back at the oil company. He bonded with Walden quickly as they shared the same interest in science. He taught him everything he knew, and they would work on experiments in Barnaby's garage after Walden was out of school for the day. Walden enjoyed his time and saw him as an uncle/father figure. Still does to this day. One day they were working on an experiment together in the garage. Barnaby said he had to go somewhere for a bit, but he'll come back. He warned Walden not to touch anything till he came back, but thinking he was grown and smart to do it, Walden continued to work on the experiment. Suddenly an explosion happened. Barnaby raced back to the garage and saw Walden bleeding, specifically his left arm. His hand exploded in the process. Thankfully, Walden was okay, but his hand wasn't. To fix it up, Barnaby created a high-tech prosthetic arm with claws for him. You would think Wallace would be grateful for what Barnaby did. No, he didn't. He was beyond furious and fired Barnaby on the spot. But later on, he would earn his teaching degree and taught at a college for a couple of years until he met up with Walden again when he built the factory. Years later, Wallace urged Walden that he had to find someone when he took over the oil company. Walden didn't want to and wanted to continue his study in science, but Wallace ignored his cries and put an arranged marriage with his childhood friend, Julianne Joyful. Walden didn't really mind marrying her since he's known her his whole life. Julie, however, was thrilled. She's loved Walden ever since they met, and this whole next step was exciting for her. I believe Julie was 18 and Walden was 19 when they got married. Even if Julie loved Walden, there wasn't any real feelings between them. It's hard to say. It was probably forced or fake, but they did like each other at some point. Walden ignored Wallace's protests and chased his dreams to continue his research. At the age of 20, he opened Darling Enterprises, a research facility to create a cure for all diseases. Why did Walden set that objective exactly? Well, let's take you back a couple of steps. Remember when Walden exploded his arm and that he wanted to continue his study in science? When his arm exploded, he discovered that everyone had colors in them. Basically something in a human/Muppet's body that gives them their appearance and strength, I think. It's also discovered that this serum has some sort of magical and healing abilities. Walden wanted to study that and make it into something great. Of course, it takes violent nature. He only discovered this when his hand exploded. So what does he do? He takes test subjects, experiments, and creatures, and contains them in cells so the work can progress further from there. He couldn't do this alone. With the help of his friends he's met along the way, they help him fund and build his project, which now has the name the Rainbow Serum, or for short, the R Serum. In present time, they're still working on it, so it is not finalized yet. We don't even know it works. Maybe someday, who knows? The people have an important role as they work under Walden and are close to him. Those people are Julie, Barnaby, Sally, Frank, Eddie, Poppy, and Howdy. Fast forward 2 years later, Walden was now currently 22, and Darling Enterprises was successful and thriving. Although another wonder came into his life. One night, Walden was out in the forest until he heard a nearby baby crying. He followed the cry, and it came from a burning building nearby. He raced in there and saved the newborn. Not knowing what to do, he took the baby back home to Julie, and that's how they met their adoptive daughter, Oilia Darling. Oilia was a smart and active little girl with a curious mind. They were a happy family, and Walden actually found meaning in life rather than working in the factory all the time. When Oilia was 5 years old, Julie quit being Walden's assistant to become a stay-at-home mom and take care of her. So Walden was needed of an assistant. This is where we come in, ourselves, or OC in the story, YN. You were really smart as a kid, like beyond smart. Your parents passed away at a young age and got taken care of by your grandparents. You did amazing in school, but didn't have the money to go to college, so you worked a couple jobs in town. Luckily, Walden would sometimes visit and go to the diner where you worked at as a waiter and/or waitress. You had a couple conversations, and one night, after your shift, he offered you a job as his assistant at Darling Enterprises. In return, he would pay off your grandparents' debt and pay you a lot of money. Well, you couldn't really refuse. Unfortunately, not all things happened happily. One night, Walden was working late in his office while Oilia waited for him to finish up. But then she wandered off because she saw a beautiful butterfly that kept flying away. As the curious child she is, she followed it. A tragedy happened. I recommend to listen to the official audio from your internet mom on her channel to see what happened. All I'm saying, it was home's fault. Again. After Oilia's sudden and tragic death at the age of 7, Walden's cold demeanor rose back up and locked himself away. You would think he would have told Julie what had really happened. No, he did not. He wasn't even the one to tell her that she died. That was Barnaby. Julie and Walden's marriage fell as they kept having endless arguments, and they divorced. Now, most people would say one person in this situation was wrong, but actually, in my opinion, they both took it wrong. Walden covered up how Oilia actually died and said it was a heart attack, lied to his wife, paid more attention to his work than his own daughter, and cut all contact from Julie. Julie, however, after the divorce became an absolute crash out. She gave all of Walden's contact information and whereabouts to Wallace, taking away Oilia's personal belongings, burned letters from Francine to Walden and his stuffed bear that Francine also gave to Walden, and she made up a reason for the divorce that he was an alcoholic. Now you're probably wondering, where does the story stand now? Well, YN still works at Darling Enterprises alongside Walden. Julie lives with Sally in her bakery, as Sally also quit a long time ago. And you and Walden still are working on the R serum. You should check the Color of Madness series on Internet Mom's YouTube channel. That'll explain what is there to expect. Credits to her for some art in this video and the lore from her Discord server. Credits to Dodo as well for some of this art. Thank you for staying till the very end. Hope you enjoyed.
Nothing beats a jet fuel today.